Oh, sorry. It's you. All right. Well, that's just me goofing off on a Sunday. And by the way, if you don't like ABBA, fuck you. ABBA kicks ass. All right. This week's video, let's get on with it for Christ's sake, is about, there was this post on the Facebook by this woman, Gabrielle something or other. I have her name written down. And she had this horrible experience at the dealer with a goddamn wheel bearing. So let's talk about the goddamn wheel bearings in your goddamn Promaster. I'm a little hyper. What's there to know? Well, maybe some of it will do it in voiceover. How the hell do I know? But I got lots to show you about wheel bearings. You're going to learn everything you need to know about the bearings, then the wheels that wheel the bearings. All right, well, I'm just going to sum this up for you. You could go read it yourself on the face tubes. But she's in Canada. She's got about 70,000 miles. She takes it to the dealer. They say she hears a mild growling noise when turning one direction, not the other. They tell her she needs a wheel bearing, and they quote her $550 Canadian. I don't know what that is in real money. And anyway, when she finally goes to pick it up, it's $2,000. Even in Canadian, that's a lot of dough. So let's see what they did and what they charged her for. All right, I'm going to scan through this quickly. So they confirmed the complaint for only $85. They confirmed the complaint. And then it says here in the correction, road tested and performed a slalom test. Can hear noise from both front bearings. I don't know there is such a thing as a slalom test. I don't know what that would reveal, even if there was such a thing. But I'd be highly skeptical that both wheel bearings went out at the same time. But that's just regular dealership fuckery. Let's move along. So they charged her 4 hours labor, $679. That's actually not horrible. 2 hours aside's pretty good. I happened to look it up this week, and it books at 1.1 hours, which is crazy. It's many, many hours, but that's how it gets billed. Anyway, they charge her $134 for each bearing, $35 for shipping, and $246 per wheel speed sensor, also known as an ABS sensor. Now, it is true that if you replace the bearing, you'll probably destroy the sensor, and just to get it out of the way, you'll probably destroy it. But that's pretty egregious. Let's see what those parts actually cost from a non-dealership place. Alright, so here's what AutoZone gets for a wheel bearing, $109, pretty straightforward. And here's what you would find from Rock Auto if you have time. So you can see quite a range. The cheapest one is $27. I don't know if I'd go with that. And the most expensive one is the Mopar one at $212. And I don't think that's necessary. In the past, I have used the SKF at $103, which seems about right, and obviously seems like that's what it should be if AutoZone's only charging $109. Alright, now we're looking at the ABS sensor. This is AutoZone, $119, pretty straightforward. If you hop over to Rock Auto, you'll see that you can have it, forget about the rear ones, we're only talking about the front ones, for as little as $33 and as much as $85. You know, if it was my van, I'd gamble on the $32 one because it's just a magnet on a stick. One can't really be any better than another, really, when you get right down to it. Alright, while you get to watch me playing Dancing Queen, I'm going to explain to you what the general gimmick is here. So if you've got a bad wheel bearing, there's two ways to go about it. The right way is you take the thing off, you send it to a machine shop, they press out the old bearing, then you press in the new one, put a new ABS sensor on, and bolt it all back together. Expensive, time-consuming, stupid. The way I have found myself that I do it, which I think is better, is I go to a junkyard and I buy a used spindle for $75, and it has a perfectly good bearing in it because it came out of a wrecked van, and I can test it before I put it on, even before I pick it up, and it already has the ABS sensor with it, and often it comes with the brakes still attached to it because they just unbolt it and give it to you. So that's the $75 way to do this, and then you just bolt it in. In theory, that it only costs you an hour, although in practice it's a couple hours to bolt it in. But there you go. Now we're going to see what that entails. All right, kids, showing you what's involved here, and also your diagnostic for this fun stuff. You wouldn't have to take the axle out to do this diagnosis, but I want you to hear this. It's binding. I can feel it. If you were here, you'd hear it. Now, when I had the wheel on it and the axle in it and so on, it was harder to feel, but you could definitely hear this one moving. And I was suspicious. I made sure to get both tires up in the air and get them spinning so I could get a stethoscope on it. And I heard it a little bit, but now that it's free to spin without any weight on it, it's obvious that's what was making our noise. The point is, this shit is not that complicated. 3 bolts that hold the ball joint on, the one main bolt for the ball joint, which I realize now I didn't actually have to take out. The tie rod end, which allows you to move the hub, the axle nut, And we're going to take over here. I have a video on how to replace this. But anyway, there's a bolt there, a pinch bolt, and this E-socket here. And then this knuckle will come out. What we're going to replace it with is over here, which I will show you now. Sure it did. All right, this is what you get when you go to the junkyard and spend $75. This is a spindle. It's called a spindle. They used to have it listed under knuckle, but I think they've changed that because I found it under spindle. You'll go on car-part.com and search and sort them by distance from you. You'll find them ranging anywhere between $75 to $200 odd. In my opinion, the mileage on the van that this came from doesn't matter. Obviously, this one had quite a bit of rust on it. Often they will come with a rotor still attached because they just take them off. But what's important is it'll usually come with an intact wheel speed sensor, or ABS sensor as it's known, which will save you having to get this crusty piece of shit out. And also, the barrel of this is almost always seized up in the bore here and requires some hillbilly engineering to get out. It's nice not to have to fuck with it. As you can see, compared to the other one, how well this spins. And that's what you'll do. When you go to the junkyard, they'll hand it to you and you'll test it by spinning it. Just make sure it spins smoothly and doesn't scrape. It'll be obvious. What you'll also want to do, which we didn't do with this one, was inspect. These are where the ball joint bolts up into it. And on this particular spindle, there was a broken off bolt in here. I had to take this to a machine shop. I was not brave enough to tackle that myself. He got it out. I don't know how he got it out, but it was, what, 60 bucks? 60 bucks to extract that bolt. But you obviously, if you have a choice, buy one that doesn't have bolts broken off from it. And it may come with a ball joint on it still. And if it does, then they'll be pretty likely to come out. We're going to replace these anyway, but you're to inspect to make sure that those three are intact. It will usually come with a rusty shield. The shield looks like this. It just is a sort of a backing plate that blocks crap from getting between the rotor and the thing and whatever. You can unbolt your old shield and bolt it on, or you could skip it. You can also buy the shield separate. And that's pretty much all there is to know. I suppose one other thing you'd want to check when you go to buy it is what is the condition of the guide pins. As you know, your Promaster has a pin here and a pin here, not exactly 180 degrees opposite. And those pins do nothing except they do pin the rotor to the hub. What they do is guide the wheel on. When you take it off, it allows you to guide the wheel on. And because they're offset, you can only put the wheel on one way. You wouldn't be able to get it to fit if this were here, because you'll see there. Well, I assume you have eyes and you can see. But anyway, you'd be looking to make sure these threads are okay, and they're probably going to be okay. And that's about it. Well, all right, there it is. I like to think you know every goddamn thing there is to know about the wheel bearings, and I should conclude with this following information that the wheel bearings don't really, they either never go out or they go out maybe as early as 80,000 miles, as late as 200,000 miles, and it's just not something you need to worry about. They're going to present themselves with their normal symptoms, which is common to every wheel bearing, so there's nothing different there. And in fact, the wheel bearings, it could be argued, are quite big in the Promaster and quite robust. All right, well, let's take it on home. Getting into it. Goddamn lovely